So Child's Play isn't a great movie, but it's really cute in comparison to the shit that comes after it. I mean, the opening shootout on its own is hilarious. It's a mix between Reservoir Dogs and Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. Chucky's actually a criminal named Charles Lee Ray who, while on the run from the law, summoned a sky god with his voodoo amulet to transport his soul into the body of a good guy doll so he can track down his revenge in another form. What? The script was originally supposed to make the audience question whether or not Chucky was real, and maybe the kid's just imagining it, but then the final draft is just like,
"You stupid bitch, you filthy slut! Did you fuck with me?"
And honest to God, I loved it. I loved every minute of this movie. Seriously, this movie is so much more blunt and stupid than I was imagining, which makes it really, really fun to watch. I mean, the second kill in this entire franchise is this. But I guess it leads to a sort of bizarre problem where the tension and build-up to the kills are really effective, the score is excellent, and you're on the edge of your seat, but then the actual kill is Chucky bonking a guy on the head with a tiny little baseball bat and saying "batter up." The effects look pretty good. I especially like it when he's been burnt to a crisp, but he looks so disgusting. I love it. But I swear to God, anytime you see him crawling around like an evil little goblin, it just looks so funny. Today, Chucky sure as hell ain't scary, but his personality holds up. He's still one delightfully evil bitch. Most of the character writing in the movie is pretty solid. I have basically nothing to complain about when it comes to the writing, except for the fact that all of the characters are so clumsy. Like, dude, stop. My favorite scene is when this kid slowly walks into something like 4 times in a single shot. And the last couple minutes go fucking crazy. I mean, it completely loses its mind. It's just characters tripping over shit and Chucky being a violent little gremlin and him getting abused, which is something these movies love to do, but we'll get to that later. But anyway, it's decently effective as both a horror movie and a comedy, and it's a fine start to this franchise. Oh yeah, and Chucky definitely dies at the end of this one, and he's never coming back. I mean, Child's Play 2 is fucking awesome. This movie was a welcome surprise. It takes everything that was so good about the first movie and ups it tenfold. It feels less like a sequel and more like the first Child's Play movie just kept going. Where the first movie started at a 1 and then escalated to a 10 by the end, this movie starts at an 11 and just keeps going up from there. And while I made fun of the silliness of the first movie, Child's Play 2 is like actually funny.
You seen dolls that pee? This one bleeds.
It feels like one of those really good, mean-spirited horror comedies that's equally as disturbing as it is intentionally funny. And Chucky is just pissed off. Like, he keeps screaming every line he has. Chucky just doesn't calm the fuck down. It's awesome. And best of all, this movie's genuinely disturbing at points. The kills are notably way more brutal than the first movie. I love how this bright and colorful factory with slime ripped straight out of the Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards is mixed with this David Cronenberg shit, which is probably the closest this series has gotten me to genuinely being scared so far. So yeah, Child's Play was surprisingly awesome, my favorite of the two so far. Oh yeah, and in the end, Chucky gets like sprayed into his mouth so hard he blows up, so he's never coming back. Ever again. And ever, I swear. Child's Play 3 isn't an awful movie, but it's definitely the weakest so far. As it's gone along, the series started to embrace its silliness a bit more. We'll get to that in a minute. But this one feels stuck. It's still trying to kind of be a horror movie about Chucky chasing down Andy, but the plot is kind of bad and stupid, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. It's 8 years after the second movie, and Chucky mails himself to the military so he could fuck with Andy a bit more. This is actually what the movie's about. It's Full Metal Jacket meets Chucky, which doesn't make any sense. It's way too silly to be serious and too serious to be a comedy, so it doesn't really work all that well. It's not like the worst movie ever. I really like it when this kid dies. I like the part where Chucky's racist.
Chucky's gonna be a bro.
I don't have much more to say about this one. I
respect
them for trying something different, but I wish it worked better. Chucky gets sliced into a billion pieces by a blade, so he gets married in the next movie. So watching Bride of Chucky for the first time in the year 2022 was a bizarre experience. Somehow, this movie has both aged like a fine wine and a carton of fucking milk. Let's start with the good. As everybody knows, Jennifer Tilly is easily the best part of this movie, and I really like the first act, all things considered. Seeing Chucky acting like a moody baby after being resurrected was genuinely very funny. Along the same lines, the ending of the movie is absolutely insane. I loved it. But it's hard to describe how hard this movie dips in quality when the second act hits. The jokes also lose a lot of their consistency. Like, Chucky causes an explosion in a car crash, and then Tiffany turns to him and says, "At least you haven't forgotten how to show a girl a good time." The movie also has what I like to call punchable jokes.
So how did you end up like this?
Well, it's a long story.
It sure is.
In fact, if it was a movie, it would take 3 or 4 sequels just to do it justice.
And I know that a lot of people absolutely adore this movie, and you know what? That's great. It's not my kind of thing. You guys really liked Bride of Chucky, so you called out into the void that we want more Chucky, more Tiffany, more gory kills, more meta jokes, and more dark comedy. But then the monkey's paw curled its finger and boom, seed of Chucky.
Mel Gibson ain't the only one God's been talking to in Hollywood.
Hold on. What was God telling Mel Gibson?
You look like a on heat, and if you get by a pack of it'll be your fault.
I knew this one was going to be a full-on dark comedy, and that's a genre that I have so much love for. But then I watched it, and holy shit, it pushed me to my fucking limit.
There is a limit to how much I can take!
This movie's filled with jokes about murdering pregnant women and coat hanger abortions and Hollywood sex abuse, and they aren't funny enough to justify being so tasteless. It left me with this sick feeling in my stomach. If you ask me, this one should have been a short film. There's about 10 to 15 minutes that are actually really funny in here. Don Mancini directed the crap out of it. There are some funny lines here and there.
And I have a very high tolerance for nuts.
But, I don't know, man. So I just got done watching Curse of Chucky, and this movie fucks so hard. Why did nobody tell me? This is just a really solid horror movie. The setting is unique, Chucky's actually scary again, and the kills are inventive. The movie definitely has a lot going on, but I was into it. I thought some of the surreal horror that could be found in Seed of Chucky was pretty interesting, and I'm happy to see this movie embracing it. Although, it is a direct-to-DVD movie, and you can kinda tell, but fuck man, I don't know, this is just a really good movie. I don't have a lot to say about it. Nika's a great addition to the franchise. The ending. Yeah, the ending is insane. But yeah, this is easily one of my favorites. I'm assuming most of you haven't seen it, so check it out. Cult of Chucky was a mostly satisfying follow-up to Curse. It goes without saying that I enjoyed that one way more, but this one isn't bad. The first act is pretty strong, with some fun characters, plot lines, and an interesting change of scenery. Fiona is an amazing actress, and I like that they gave Andy something new to do. The second act was even better. It leaned more heavily into the surrealism and mystery of it all, with some character revelations and kills that were genuinely shocking. And it was all leading up to a shit show of a third act, where most of the plot lines just kind of stop. So unfortunately, it left a pretty sour taste in my mouth for what could have been one of the more interesting and fun horror flicks. But it's a hard movie to complain about. It's funny, it's gory, it's super gay, what more could you ask for? Movie good, video almost over. So I watched the 2019 Child's Play reboot, and it sure is a movie. So every other film in this franchise has been written by the same dude, and that same creative voice made these movies really stand out. But then they decided to modernize it for my generation. You know what, it isn't an awful movie, but it made me realize why the first one is way, way, way better. And it's Chucky. His character is really strong, even if the spooky scenes are comical. And this reboot has some comical scares, like when they play the boo sound effect when the mom just walks across the camera. But the character of Chucky, which is now voiced by Mark Hamill, is fucking boring. Yeah, the design is creepier, but it just doesn't work. It's now like an Alexa smart device type thing, but it's still a doll, and he isn't evil anymore, he's just malfunctioning. And he has full movement from the beginning, so it isn't creepy to see him move around.
This is for Tupac.
The lady from Parks and Rec is the best part of this movie. That was a disappointing way to end the movies. So yeah, now I don't have any other horror franchises to catch up on. You know, besides all 12 Friday the 13th movies, all 9 Nightmare on Elm Street movies plus the crossover with the Friday the 13th movies, all 6 Alien movies plus 2 crossovers, all 9 sequels to Texas Chainsaw Massacre, all 11 Children of Corn movies plus 1 short film, all 8 movies in the Leprechaun franchise, all 4 Insidious movies, 4 Jaws movies, 4 Pumpkinhead movies, 8 Conjuring movies, 9 Saw films, 12 Halloween movies, 5 Purge movies plus a 20-episode miniseries, 5 Scream movies, 7 Wrong Turns, 1 Dark Universe movies, 4 VHS movies plus 1 spin-off, 16 Witchcraft